Okay, yeah, I'm Rod Fink. I was actually back in the mid '60s. Was going to college and had a pre-med, and I was working full time at the same time as trying to carry a heavy load. And I had to drop a class, and I got drafted. So I figured, I don't want to go to Vietnam, so I decided I would enlist in the Navy Reserve. And they don't even use the Navy Reserve, right? They're just in reserve. So the recruiter looked at me, he saw I had been pre-med, and he said, listen, we can give you two choices. You can be a hospital corpsman or a barnacle scraper. And I said, well, I don't really like barnacles, but I don't want to go to Vietnam. So he said, oh no, you won't go to Vietnam. And I wound up going into the Navy, and I had after hospital corpsman training, I had a year in a Navy hospital. And then I got orders to go to Camp Pendleton for the Fleet Marine training. They trained corpsmen there. And they immediately started saying, whatever you do, if you get to Vietnam, don't get 1-9. Well, 1-9 was the 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, and it was also called the Walking Dead. And they got the name from one of their first battles. They wound up killing one of Ho Chi Minh's relatives. That's the account that we've heard. And one of his generals said, I'm going to give you the Walking Dead as a Christmas present. So basically, everywhere the Walking Dead went, they had extra battalions and regiments sometimes assigned to try to kill them. So as a result, the Walking Dead wound up with the most killed in action of any Marine unit in Vietnam. And one of my first assignments was I got sent up to the DMZ, and our company command bunker was hit, and I had to go up and work on the wounded. And one of the guys that was wounded was the senior corpsman, but he died about 8 hours later, and then the company commander died 8 days later. So I was moved up to senior corpsman at that point of Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. And we had a hill called Contien, which had the most shelling on a small hill of any war the Marines had been in on one day. It was 1,200 rounds. We averaged 200 to 300 rounds of incoming enemy fire a day, and basically everywhere you walked, you were looking for your next place to jump in a hole. You didn't just go across an open field. You went around to where you were near bunkers or trenches or something. And even if you jumped in a hole and there was already guys in it, you would still jump in, and you'd be squirming to get under the guy that was below you. So as The Walking Dead was kind of symbolized what we went through. And I guess the other thing after that deal on the DMZ, that was 47 days, and then we wound up. We had a little time in the safer area called Camp Evans, and then we went to the Battle of Quai Son, and that was another 77 days. That was one of the longest battles of the war and one of the bloodiest. And I think the average, they said, was 360 rounds a day average. And interesting thing, they had B-52s. 3 B-52s were carpet bombing around us every 90 minutes around the clock for 60 days. So that was, if you are near a B-52 blast, actually, even if it's a quarter mile away, you're bouncing in your bunker. So we had ground attacks at night. Hanoi Hannah would be on the radio. That's the only radio station we had, was the North Vietnamese propaganda channel. And she would play rock and roll music and say, tonight, Colonel Mitchell, we're going to hit your perimeter at 2 a.m. Be ready, boys. And then sure enough, they would try a probe on a certain section of the defenses to see how many tracer rounds they got. basically it was different nights. There would be different sections of the perimeter that would be attacked. They were tunneling underneath us. Eventually the NVA kept moving closer and closer because of the B-52s to where you could see them out in the field. They would be digging a tunnel underneath you. And if you called in an airstrike or whatever, napalm, whatever, they would just go back in their tunnel and then stick their head up again. It was pretty exciting. During that time, excuse me, I had to go with one mission. We had a hill that was about 500 yards outside of the main perimeter of Quezon, and one of the first platoon of my company was up there, but they got overrun in the night, and we had to go up with a reinforced group to retake the hill in the morning. And after that battle, there was 150 enemy bodies left behind. The 28 men of the battalion, 1st platoon of Alpha Company, had been killed in that battle. And so basically I was working on wounded and crawling on the bodies. That was my first, basically the worst day of the war. After the war, I had a pretty heavy dose of PTSD, kept getting into fights, kept getting fired. I had a good job, who my boss was Vietnamese, and I went up to him one day and I said, you know, I think I killed your father. And what was I doing? I messed up a good job. I got fired from that job. And the psychologist said, yeah, that's called self-sabotage. And I wound up getting 100% disability from PTSD. And then 20 years ago, I got cancer from Agent Orange and almost died from that. So that was another 100% disability. But I'm still here and I'm still helping veterans, and I appreciate being able to tell the story that The Walking Dead is a famous Marine battalion, and I'm still proud to be with them on their board of directors. I'm actually a historian for the battalion, so that's about it.